Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Dynamics 365 Tech Talk. Today's topic is governance, lifecycle gates, and operating agents in production. So it is the third part in a series of Tech Talks around best practices for evaluating agent. My name is Akshat Singh, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Team Live's event. This session is being recorded on behalf of Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name and email address may be viewable by sessions organizers. By joining, you are agreeing to this experience. If you do not consent to be a part of a recorded session, please disconnect your line at this time. The recording will be made available in the Tech Talks community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for your presenter or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. If you wish your name not to be visible to the organizer or session participants, please post your question anonymously. We'll be responding to your questions throughout the session and in a live segment at the end of presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Priyanka Sinha, Senior Solution Architect, Ahmed Yildirim, Senior Solution Architect, and myself, Akshat Singh, Senior Solution Architect. Priyanka, over to you.
Thank you, Akshay. Hello, everyone. I'm Priyanka Sinha, Senior Solution Architect at Microsoft. It is great to be here with you today, and we welcome you to this Tech Talk series. So, as you know, in session one, we laid to the foundation by introducing the agent evaluation framework. We covered what evaluation means for AI agents and how to set up the core components. In session two, we went deeper into practical side, how to design evaluation sets, choose the right metrics, build a comprehensive evaluation blueprint. And today in session three, we are going to focus on operational side, that is governance, lifecycle gates, and what it takes to run agent reliably in production. Uh, so let's get started. And what we are going to cover today, first we will start with governance, why it matters specifically for AI agents. Then we'll move into evaluation lifecycle. Next, we will look at the evaluation gates, and after that, we will dive into production evaluation strategy. Finally, we will wrap up with best practices and key takeaways. So let's jump in with the governance. So before we talk about evaluations, we need to understand why governance matters specifically for AI agents and why it looks fundamentally different from what we are used to do in traditional D365 implementation. So, in a classic D365 project, quality is largely can be determined. You configure a form, write a plugin, test it, and once it passes, it stay passed. The system reaches at, let's say, a stable state after go live, but agents are different. Their quality is not static. Models gets updated, grounding data shifts over time, and user behavior evolves. So all of this means an agent that worked perfectly last month may silently degrade without anyone noticing. So that's the key shift. With traditional software, risk is front loaded. You test before release and then move on. With agent, risk is continuous. You can never fully uh, prove that an agent works. Instead, you accumulate evidence that it behaves correctly over time. This also means accountability must be explicit. In Dynamics, we know exactly who signs off at each gate. Let's say the business owner approves the solution blueprint, the solution architect validate the technical readiness, and there are some other tasks. But with agents, the stakes are different. Someone must own the agent quality, monitor it continuously, and have authority to act when things go wrong. So, without clear governance, agent projects either stall in endless testing because no one is willing to accept the risk, or they ship with unclear accountability and no plan for ongoing oversight. So that is why you see that governance matters for AI agent. Now, again, AI agents are different, as I mentioned. It needs continuous evaluation. So, in the traditional D365 testing, we know for same input, same output is going to be there. It is predictable. We have pass fail tests criteria. We configure something, we test it. Either it is pass or fails. And once it passes, we move on. But in AI agent behavior, it is little different. The same input can produce different valid outputs. Agents act autonomously on live data, often without a human in the loop. And critically, their quality drifts over time as model gets updated and grounding data changes. So there is no binary pass or fail. This is the core reason evaluation cannot stop at go live. So with traditional software, you are testing, verifying, uh, but with agent, it is continuous and we accumulate evidence over time that it behaves correctly. So the key insight reinforces this accountability must be explicit. Someone needs to own agent quality on an ongoing basis and should have authority. Now let's move into the evaluation life cycle. Evaluation life cycle is aligned with success by design phases. If you see here, we have five pillars, and the key message here is that evaluation is not a one-time activity. It's a first class life cycle artifact that evolves at every stage. So here, if you see at stage one, that is initiate, which is design and ideation phase, this is where you define what success looks like before writing a single line of code. Stage two is implement, which is build and configuration phase. Here you build your evaluation asset, test cases, data sets, your measurement frameworks, and all. Stage three is prepare, which is pre production validation. This is the most critical gate where, before you go live, you run comprehensive evaluation and make an evidence based go no go decision. And then stage four is deploy, like in production. This involves shadow testing, experiments, telemetry setup, and then enforcement and traceability are essential here. Now, the next phase, last phase is stage five, operate, which is continuous operation. This is where most teams underinvest, and you need to ongoing monitoring, um, detection, feedback loop, and iterative refinement. So evaluation doesn't stop at deployment. It's a continuous discipline for as long as the agent is live. So if you see here, there are five pillars or phases which is aligned with SBD with some different actions. Now here, if you see, we are talking about key governance roles who are responsible for evaluation decision across the agent delivery lifecycle. If you see here, each role from business owner to solution architect to manager carries distinct accountability for evidence-based sign-off at every stage. Unlike traditional implementation where roles are engaged only at specific milestone, agent governance requires continuous involvement because agent quality can drift post-deployment. So, making ongoing oversight is essential. Here, the key takeaway is that clear role assignment is required, and this prevents accountability gaps. Every evaluation gate must have a named decision maker who reviews the evidence and accept or reject the risk before agent advances. Now let's go a little deeper into these stages. So here in stage one, the central question is what does success look like for this agent? From evaluation perspective, this is where you define evaluation intent aligned to the user and business outcome. For example, 95% of inquiries resolve without escalation, or always verify inventory before promising delivery. On the governance side, this is where you decide whether the agent should be built at all. What problem does it solve? How do we define good? And crucially, what types of evidence will inform our go no go decision later in the life cycle? And here, the key output from this stage is that evaluation design document, or we call it EDD, this specifies what good means, what type of evaluation will be needed, and think of the EDD as a contract between stakeholders. So, this is what everyone points back to when debating whether the agent is ready for production or not. Now, moving to stage two, which aligns with the implement phase, and it's all about translating your evaluation into concrete and executable evaluation asset. The question we are asking is, are we building the right evaluation to validate this agent? So, from the evaluation standpoint, this is where the real work happens. You create test data set and reflect real world uses, including core scenarios, edge cases, long tail inputs. And then you design grading approaches, which include automated metrics, LLM, human review, and all. And you define an evaluation taxonomy so that results are explainable, what was evaluated, how, and why it matters. On the governance side, the focus is on ensuring your metrics and methods are appropriate, that your evaluation data sets represent realistic use. And the key output is a functional evaluation suite that can be run repeatedly with clear documentation of what each evaluation measures and why. So, this becomes the foundation for all downstream gates. Without well designed evaluation here, your readiness gate later will lack meaningful evidence. Now, with stage three, which is prepare phase, the critical go no go movement, the fundamental question is, does the evidence supporting go live? From the evaluation perspective, you run a comprehensive evaluation suits against the final agent version. You assess whether your test data sets are representative, what user intents are covered versus what is missing. So you document known limitation and edge cases where the agent may fail. You conduct testing, including jailbreak attempts and prompts injections, and you perform human evaluation, which serves as a UAT equivalent for agents. From governance standpoint, this is where leadership must take make a judgment call. Is the agent ready? What risk remain? Are they acceptable? The decision isn't always binary. You might have a conditional go where the agent launches with some constraints, such as, let's say, limited scope, shadow mode only, or mandatory human review for certain action types. So, someone must also explicitly accept or address the residual risk identified by gaps in the evidence. And the key output is a go no go decision with document rationale, evaluation results summary, known gaps, conditions for launch, and re evaluation triggers. So, this documentation becomes the accountability trail. It records who decided, based on what evidence, and under what condition. So the agent was approved for the production. So all these need to be documented for the evidence. Now with the stage four, this spans the transition from prepare to operate and focuses on formalizing the deployment decision. This is about gate enforcement and traceability, making the decision official, and establishing operational contracts. So if you see evaluation side, someone must explicitly accept the residual risk and document under what condition they are doing so. So this evidence and assumptions are packaged as part of deployment record. This creates the audit trail, and evaluation must be traceable and interpretable, like what was tested, what was not tested, and what the result means in the business terms. And if you see from governance, At this stage, it's about implementing the production gate itself. You document the decision, who made the call, what evidence was reviewed, and you establish the criteria for re-evaluation, what triggers, let's say, uh, warrant revisiting the go live decision. The key output is a production deployment record containing evaluation evidence reviewed, risk acceptance documentation, release approver identities, condition for operation, and the re-evaluation criteria. So this record is what you point to when anyone asks who approved this agent for production on what basis. So you need to have this documentation which can be referred back. Now, stage 5 is the operate phase, and this is where agent diverge most dramatically from traditional D365 implementation. With traditional software, you go live, stabilize, and move into maintenance. However, with agent, go live is just the beginning of a continuous evaluation cycle. The governance question is straightforward but ongoing. Is the agent performing as expected? And based on what you observe, should you proceed as is? Should you adjust, limit scope, or it is, let's say, half entirely? On the evaluation side, you continuously monitor agent behavior through online evaluations and observability. You actively detect drift. Is the agent's behavior changing over time due to model updates, data shift, or evolving user patterns? You refresh evaluation data sets as users' pattern evolve because the test set that was representative at launch may not be representative at the, let's say, 6 months later, because you have evaluation, you have data shift, models are getting updated, or maybe user patterns are getting updated. And the key output are ongoing, where production error rate monitoring uh, should be checked, user satisfaction tracking such as CSAT, A/B testing, or improvements, periodic regression evaluation, and incident response with root cause analysis. So the measure learn, tune, re-evaluate loop should be run. And this is the engine that drives this stage. It never stops as long as the agents in production is active. So we talked about those stages and how do we run that. Next, let's now try to understand a little about evaluation gates. So evaluation gates are formal go no go decision points placed between each life cycle stages, ensuring that an agent cannot advance without meeting the predefined evidence threshold for quality, safety, and business alignment. Unlike traditional testing checkpoints, these gates are specifically designed for the non deterministic nature of AI agent, where pass fail is replaced by evidence based confidence levels and explicit acceptance of residual risk. If you see here, each gate maps to a life cycle stage, from validating the evaluation intent during design to confirming evaluation asset readiness during build to the critical pre-production go no go during prepare, and then finally to ongoing production health check during operate. So here this diagram illustrates how evidence flow forward, outputs from one gate become input for the next, creating a traceable chain of accountability across the entire delivery lifecycle. At each gate, a named decision maker must review the accumulated evidence, assess the identified risk, and formally approve or reject. So, this prevents the agents from shipping with unclear accountability. And as a best practice, every gate decision should be documented with the evidence reviewed, risk identified, decision rational, approver name, and the criteria that will trigger the next review cycle. So this is a little about the evaluation gates. Now, additionally, we should also consider responsible AI that must be validated at specific lifecycle gates. So each gate has defined entry criteria, evidence requirements, and decision outcome. And if you say responsible AI is not a separate work stream, it must be embedded into every lifecycle gate. And if you see here during design, uh, you establish the RAI foundation, reviewing the requirements, assessing the risk profile, defining acceptable behavior boundaries, and documenting the criteria before in development begins. And then in build phase, the focus shifts to active testing. Let's say red team exercise, PII protection validation, fairness assessment across different user segments, and prompt testing. So these are a few things need to be done during build phase. As part of pre-deploy, it acts as final checkpoint, production readiness gate, requiring documented evidence of RAI compliance and a clear record of known limitation. No agent should go live without this traceability. That is very important. And once in production, continuous monitoring kicks in for safety detection, compliance degradation alerts, and ongoing bias monitoring, because RAI risk can emerge or worsen over the time as model and data evolve. Finally, note that three core RAI criteria at the bottom that must be addressed in every evaluation design document. And the transparency you should have, you should log, and with the traceable reasoning, so users are always aware that they are interacting with the AI. Now let's make this concrete with a sales order process agent example. This agent is built by FastTrack. This is an autonomous agent for processing sales order received via email attachments, validating customer and product data, and creating orders in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation app with minimal human intervention. In this example, this shows how RAI safety gates play out in practice across the life cycle. So, in the design phase for this agent, the team defined fairness as consistent extraction accuracy across customer segment with less than 5% variance, identified privacy risk around customer email and contact names, set a zero tolerance policy for unauthorized order creation, and established human oversight for high value or ambiguous orders. So this is the team has defined for this particular order during design phase. Now during build, let's say over 500 red team test cases were executed covering ambiguous customer names, missing product codes, unusual quantities, and international formats. Fairness was tested across 10 customer segments, and the PII was validated. This uncovered two critical blockers where PII leaking into error logs and it's hallucinating the product code. So this was one of the critical error which had to be fixed before moving forward. Now at the pre-deploy gate, the team configured monitoring dashboard, created incident runbooks, validated that 100% of orders attempts were audit logged, and obtained sign off on the privacy controls. So the agent was approved for production with the causes 10% shadow mode rollout. We will be talking about what is shadow mode and other concepts for this. But for now, this has to be done in production. And now, if we go to in production, weekly automated report track, RAI metrics, monthly human reviews, sample, let's say over 100 orders, and real time alerts fire on unauthorized attempts. Also, we can check PI detection or accuracy drops. So we can have alerts on these critical factors. In week two, let's say a 7% fairness variance for international customers triggered an investigation and prompt adjustment. So the incident response example is especially valuable. The agent created an order for the wrong customer due to similar company names, leading to immediate rollback and enhanced matching algorithm, additional test cases, and updates to the evaluation design documents. So, this shows the full feedback loop in action: detect, mitigate, prevent, and then enhance your agent. So, this is whole loop you need to perform even in production, even the agent is live in production. Now, for the next topic, which is production evaluation strategy, I would like to hand over to Ahmed. Ahmed, over to you.
Thanks for the handover. And I can say that now we are entering the production evaluation strategy section. This is where we are moved from the pre-production, where the Priyanka explained, to the real-world validation phase. So the big shift here is that production evaluation is fundamentally different from offline testing, the pre-prod testing. So now here you are dealing with real users, real data, and of course the real consequences. I will cover shadow mode, A/B testing, A/B and testing as your primary experimentation tool. And then by the end of this section, you will know which experimentation mode fits which risk profile and what signals tells you the agent is still healthy in production. So this slides gives us a side-by-side comparison of three production experimentation modes: the shadow mode, A/B testing, A/B-N testing. Shadow mode, let's start with it, has very low risk and it has zero user impacts. The agent runs in parallel and logs predictions without affecting anyone. On A/B testing, it has low to moderate risk with limited user impact. So you are splitting traffic between a control and treatment group. So we will come to its details as well in the next upcoming slides. On ABN testing has moderate to high risk with moderate user impact. So you are testing multiple variants simultaneously. The choice between these depends on your risk tolerance, traffic volume, and how many alternatives you need to compare. So you need to start with shadow mode to graduate to AB and use ABN when you have sufficient traffic and multiple promising approaches to compare. So as a rule of thumb, always start at the leftmost mode you can justify. So you graduate to the right-hand side, only when the data earns it. So when you move from before explaining these shadow mode A/B testing, I also want to open a parenthesis and talk about transition from offline to online evaluation. I think that will make more clearer for the upcoming slides. So when you move from offline testing to production evaluation, there are several critical shifts occur that you need to be prepared for. So the first one, you need to baseline, your baseline becomes dynamic. So in offline mode, you might have maybe 200 created order emails. In the online side, you are dealing with actual customer emails with varied formats, typos, incomplete information, and there can be unexpected attachments. So the second part is the evaluation moves from periodic to continuous. Instead of weekly regression test runs, you need real-time monitoring of extraction, accuracy, exception rates, and processing time on every order. So third, you go from completeness to proxy measurements. In offline, humans can review 100% of test cases. In online, you use confidence scores as a proxy with human review of sampled cases. Typically, it's around 10%, of course, plus all exceptions. These three shifts are why production evaluation is a different discipline. It shows us it's not a continuation of offline evaluation is something different. So the key point is offline evaluation establishes the authoritative baseline, but the online evaluation ensures continued performance in real-world conditions. So they are complementary and they are not substitutes. So let's talk about the shadow mode. Shadow mode is your safest entry point in the production evaluation. The agent runs in parallel with existing systems, processing real production inputs without taking any real action. So this gives you zero user exposure and risk-free evaluation with collecting production-grade signals on real data. It's especially valuable because production data often contains patterns that don't appear in your offline test sets. So choose shadow mode for high stakes domain like financial, medical, or legal applications, and when introducing capabilities that have never been validated before, when rolling back from instance, or when compliance mandates zero user exposure during testing. So this is detailed view of shadow mode deployment. Note the key characteristics. The agent process real production inputs without taking real actions, giving you risk-free evaluation on real-world data. We're talking about the sales order agent example here, and this illustrates this perfectly. Extracting orders from emails, but not creating them in FNO. You compare agent extractions against manual processing to validate accuracy on real customer emails without any business impact. Shadow mode reveals patterns your offline test sets miss. Therefore, never skip it, especially for high stakes domains or when introducing new capabilities. In our sales order agent example, shadow mode means extracting orders from emails but not creating them in FNO. So afterwards, comparing agents extractions against manual processing to validate accuracy, exception routing, and processing time on real customer emails without any business impact. As a side note, shadow mode is also the right call for the model swaps, like GPT-4 to GPT-4.1, embedding model upgrades, not for only just new agents. So you can run shadow mode on a sample subset of production traffic if cost is a concern. So not every shadow deployment needs 100% mirroring. So the key takeaway here about the shadow mode, we can say never skip shadow testing. It's your last line of defense before real users are affected. So let's come to the A/B testing. Shadow mode, we talk about it. It gives you confidence the agent works on production data without touching users. A/B testing is the next step on the risk curve. So you are now letting real users interact with the new agent, just not all of them. The pattern is champion versus challenger. The champion is your current approved agent, serving the bulk of traffic. The challenger is the new variant, an updated prompt, a different model, new grounding logic, and it receives a defined percentage of live traffic. So you then compare both groups of predefined metrics to decide which performs better. Two things have to be true for A/B testing to function as governance, not just experimentation. So you need to first pre-register your success criteria before the test starts. The primary metric, the minimum effect size, and the safety guardrails, the challenger must not regress on. Otherwise, you end up rationalizing a promotion after the fact, which is how bad agents reach to production. The secondly, statistical significance is non-negotiable. Sample size calculations tell you when results are conclusive. Stopping early because the challenger looks good after a day is the most common failure mode that we observed. The sales order agent example on the slide shows this in practice. The team improved the extraction prompt to handle product description instead of just production codes, a pattern that was causing around 10-15% of production exceptions. The A/B tests validated that the improvement generalized to real production traffic, not just only the offline test set, before they promote it to the all users. One framing point worth mentioning: in agent evaluation, A/B testing is for safety, for the reliability and the continuous improvements, not for the growth optimization like you'd see in marketing or product experimentation. The challenger doesn't have to win on engagement. It has to be safer, more accurate, or more reliable than the champion. Now, we will look at what changes when you have more than one promising challenger at the same time in the ABN testing. ABN testing extends the A/B testing by comparing multiple agent variants simultaneously. Instead of testing just one challenger against the champion, now we are testing two or more challengers at the same time, each receiving a portion of the live traffic. Choose ABN when you are optimizing multiple configuration parameters and different prompts, maybe the temperature settings or grounding strategies. You need sufficient traffic for statistical significance across all variants. In our previous session, we showed D365 CRM onboarding agent. In that example, shows 3 different IT notification email approaches being tested in parallel. So testing sequentially will take about 9 weeks, but ABN found the winner in roughly 5 weeks, so nearly the half time. The trade-off is here, you need higher traffic volumes per variant to reach statistical significance. So now we come an important point. So this is an important distinction that often gets confused in practice. So monitoring, observability, and evaluation serve different purposes in production. Let's start first with monitoring. Monitoring tells you that something happened. Let's say order processing failed for sales order agent. It's your real-time dashboards, alerts, SLO, SLA tracking, and error rates. Observability tells you what happened actually. Let's say FNO timeout, FNO API timeout happens during the validation step. So it's your traces, logs, distributed context, and deep debugging capability. Evaluation tells you whether it met expectations. Exception routing for appropriate accuracy with threshold. It's quality scoring, regression testing, what else? Fairness analysis and drift detection can be counted. All 3 are required in production. Monitoring detects issues fast. Observability enables the RCA root cause analysis. Evaluation confirms the agent still meets the business expectations. Missing any of them, that creates a blind spots in your evaluation process. So if you can only afford one of them on day one, start with monitoring. Observability and evaluation are what you build into the platform after you have established that the agent runs at all. Online evaluation signals, continuous versus periodic. Online evaluation signals falls into 2 categories: so continuous, near real-time signals, and aggregated periodic signals. Continuous signals include safety guardrail activations with a target of 0, policy adherence violations, quality degradation indicators when confidence drops below 90%, latency, reliability breaches against SLA, anomaly detection for exception rate spikes. So these can be counted. Periodic signals include weekly quality scorecards based on human evaluation for our sales order agent, let's say 20, 30 orders. Drift metrics and trends, cohort analysis by order type, customer and geo, monthly regression running, the full eval suite on production logs, and quarterly fairness audits across segments can be counted. The example at the bottom illustrates how online signals validate offline assumptions. If your offline tests show 95% extraction accuracy, but production shows, let's say, 92. You investigate, discover a new email format, not in your test data, add it and reevaluate it. This is the feedback loop in action. This slide shows us the core feedback loop that drives continuous improvement. As you can see, there are 4 stages: measure, learn, tune, and reevaluate. Let's start with measures, which means monitoring production signals for quality, safety, reliability, and policy compliance. Learn means identifying new failure patterns, maybe the edge cases, drift, and emerging behaviors. Tune means refining prompts, guardrails, adjusting them, and updating agent configuration. Reevaluate means running updated offline evaluations, validating improvements, and deploying, and after that, deploying back to the production. If we return to our sales order agent example, it's make this tangible. In the first 4 weeks of production, we observed that 15% of exceptions involved product descriptions instead of codes. Nearly 10% of international orders had lower accuracy due to date format variations, and around 2-3% of orders use non-standard units like dozens or cases. The feedback loop response at 45 new test cases covering these patterns, and updates evaluation criteria to add a product description handling dimension, adjust prompts for the agents, rerun the offline evaluation, and validate improvements, and then finally, of course, the deploying to the production. The loop continues indefinitely. For most agents, this is a weekly or bi-weekly cycle for the first quarter, then monthly one stable, as we can say as a rule of thumb. Offline eval is the gates, as you see, as we mentioned, but online eval is the truth. The loop is what keeps them aligned. So that concludes my presentation. And for the best practices and the key takeaways, I'm hand over to Akshat. Thanks.
Thanks. And before we wrap up today, I want to spend a few minutes on the pitfalls we see most often. So honestly, learning from other teams' mistake is the fastest way to accelerate your own evaluation maturity. So think of this slide as a shortcut to achieve that. So the first and most common trap is myopia. So teams are obsessed over correctness and quietly ignore safety, alignment, and efficiency, which are few important pillars. So correctness does matter, but it's just one of the 5 dimensions. So you always need to make sure that you are evaluating across all of them and document ones that take priority for your specific use case. So next is watch out for the gap between your offline evals and what actually happens in production. So if your test set doesn't reflect real traffic, then you get false confidence. So the fix is always bidirectional. So use production signals to validate that your offline assumptions still holds true. A better agent that's 3 times slower or 5 times more expensive isn't better. So it's just unaffordable. So cost and latency is very important, and they belong in every evaluation, not just as an afterthought. So the next one is over optimization on narrow metrics. So this one is a bit subtle. So when you fixate on a single KPI, agents and the teams tuning them will game it. So you will see the metric climb while the overall user experience degrades. So always measure multiple complementary dimensions, so all the trade-off surfaces. And if evaluation don't drive decisions, they are not true. So our rule of thumb is always tie your evaluation results to the hard gates. So if a failed eval doesn't block a release, it doesn't really count. And finally, prompting tweaks, model upgrade, and tool changes. So any of those can silently regress your agent. So define clear re-evaluation triggers and automate them in your CI/CD pipeline. So this happens by default, not by memory. So if you walk away avoiding just these six pitfalls, you will be ahead of most teams running agents in production today. So let's move on to how this all comes together. So, okay, now that we have covered what not to do, let's flip it. Here are some practical habits that separate teams who operate agents successfully in production from those who struggle. So we do not need to overcomplicate this, but we need to pay special attention on the best practices you see on the slide. So first one is a start small and then scale gradually. So begin with 20 to 30 evaluation cases, not 1,000. So quality matters far more than quantity. A small, well-curated set that reflects your highest risk scenarios will catch more issues than a sprawling suite of test cases which nobody maintains. Then second one is automating early. So wire evaluation into your CI/CD pipeline from the very start. The longer you wait, the harder it gets to retrofit. If evals only run when someone remembers to run them, they won't run. So make sure we automate it. Third one is LLM judges are powerful, but they are not infallible. So combine automated and human evaluation and critically validate your LLM judges against human judgment periodically. So treat the judge itself as something that needs evaluation. The next one is version is everything. So that's because so prompts, evaluation suites, data set, all of it goes under version control. When someone regresses in production, you need to be able to answer what changed in and that answer is needed immediately. So versioning is very important. Then monitoring, which Ahmed touch bases previously. So offline evals only take you so far. So production is where the real edge cases emerge. So combine those real-time signals, all latency, errors, user feedback, with periodic deeper evaluation on sample traffic. So next one is a trade based on failure. So every eval failure is a learning opportunity. So don't just fix the symptom, feed that failure case back into your suite so the same regression can never ship again. So your eval set should grow with every incident. Next one is align with business metrics. So this is the one teams miss most. So your evaluation should predict business outcomes, resolution rate, customer satisfaction, and deflection, not just technical metrics like hey, token counts or scores. So if your eval improve but the business doesn't, then we are not measuring the right thing. So it should always be aligning with the business metrics against which that agent is built. And finally, the last one, which is make accountability explicit. So what we mean by that is every production agent needs a documented trail. So who decided it was ready, based on what evidence, under what conditions. So it's the same discipline that makes D365 implementation successful. Now it is applied to the unique challenges of AI agents as well. So start with the three things on this. So assign the five governance role, even if one person wear multiple hats. Define your evaluation gates, typically the readiness gates before production, and document real decision end to end using that framework. Once you have done that, the rest scales naturally. So now, yeah, five key takeaways. So first, production evaluation is fundamentally different from offline testing. So once the agent is live in production, we have real users, real data, real consequences, and that's a different game than a static test case set. So it demands the technique we talked about, shadow mode to validate without risk, A/B testing to measure real impact, and canary deployments to limit the radius when things go wrong. The second one is continuous improvement requires systematic feedback loop. So evaluation isn't just one-time event before launch. So you need to instrument production signal, detect those drifts early, integrate human judgment where it matters, and feed every learning back into your evaluation suite. So it is the continuous loop which we need to follow. The third one is governance and lifecycle gates turn evaluation into accountability. So this is what transforms evaluation from a technical exercise into a business discipline. So evidence-based go no go decisions at each stages are how you ensure responsible AI principles are actually enforced, not just aspirational language in a deck. Next one is learning from common mistakes, which accelerate success. So we covered the big ones, narrow metric optimization, the gap between offline eval and production reality, and weak baselines. So knowing these traps exist is half the battle won. So most teams hit them simply because nobody warned them. And then operating agents at scale demands a culture, not just tooling. So this is the most important one. You can buy the best evaluation platform on the market and still fail if the organizational habits are not there. So transparent monitoring, stakeholder alignment, and iterative refinement post-production have to become how you work and how you eval the agents. So putting simply, evaluation or agent evaluation very specifically, it is a discipline. Uh, we should be requiring governance and accountability. So getting all of these working together, then you can operate your agents in production with confidence. So with that, we'll wrap today's session. Thank you everyone for joining the session. And we wish you all a good rest of the day. Bye.